but I might win.
No, hold on. Stop there. Stop there for a second. Listen, okay, you got to be real with yourself in Dynasty, Jason. You're not going to win with this roster because
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and today we are talking about rebuilds. How to do one, how to make mistakes, how to avoid those mistakes. What are the blueprints of what you're basically trying to do in a rebuild? Now, I've actually got a team that probably should do a rebuild. I really don't want to just yet. I really don't want to. I feel like I have a chance to win, but I think if I were to see a fantasy football expert like Vaz, I think that expert will probably look at my roster and say, yeah, you probably do need a rebuild. So Vaz, let's take a look at my roster to start off. This is an example of probably one of the prototypical examples of a roster that needs to be rebuilt. Tell me that I need to rebuild, because otherwise I'm going to go for it again. I'm going to trade my picks and try to win this season. Should I do it? I have a first round pick in 25. I have a first round pick in 26 that I can trade to boost up my team and go for it one more time. But you say no?
I didn't want to get into it that early. I wanted to hear from you first and hear your plan and all that stuff before we got into that. But yes, of course, when looking at your roster, and I think we should break down your roster first, but looking at your roster, I did want to challenge you to do a rebuild, and I'll get into that a bit later. I think first we should look at your roster and maybe talk about why a rebuild is necessary.
Okay, let's first mention this for people that can't see this right now, if you're driving or you're just listening. So my basic quarterbacks, okay, I've got a bunch of no names as well, but we have like 30 players on our roster. So my quarterbacks are Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers to note. Okay, I've got guys like Zach Wilson and Tannehill, Mariota. They don't really matter, Browning. But those are my main two, Mahomes and Rodgers. The reason I couldn't win last year was obviously because Rodgers was injured. My running backs, the main ones are Christian McCaffrey. I've got Derrick Henry and James Conner. Okay, I think those are a solid three if you're trying to win now. But then the issue is my wide receivers.
Let's not move too fast. Okay, let's slow down a bit here. So let's talk about your quarterbacks. Okay. You have Mahomes and you have Rodgers, right? Yeah. So you're pretty good there for quarterback in a SuperFlex league. If they both stay healthy, I think you definitely you're solid there for the next season or two, right?
Yeah.
The issue is for me, we don't know how long Rodgers is going to hold this kind of value. If you were to retire at the end of the season, you potentially lose all of that value that he has, right? Whereas if you decide to rebuild now, maybe you can get some value for him. Maybe he's tradable for like a second round pick, like an early second round pick, if you trade him now.
Yeah.
I worry that if you wait one more year, you lose out on that value. And then if we're going to go into running backs, I think this is clearly the strength of your team. Like for a redraft team, this is a very strong running back room, right? You have three running backs you can count on, two excellent ones in CMC and Derrick Henry that'll put up massive production. And then James Conner, who's a solid third running back, right? I think this is the one area of your roster that if you were a redraft team, you wouldn't have to worry about. This is clearly your strength. That being said, I think you should count your lucky stars that these guys still hold the value they do in Dynasty because they're very old, right?
Yeah.
Derrick Henry's over 30, CMC's close to 30, and James Conner's over 30 as well. So I think you should be very lucky. I think you should consider yourself very lucky that these guys still hold value. And I think if you do wait another year, it's possible that these guys lose half of their value or even more than that. So again, this is another reason why I would look to rebuild now. I think you can get considerable value for these guys. Whereas if you do wait another year, you really do take a big risk in that sense.
But I might win. But I might win.
No, hold on. Stop there for a second. Listen, you got to be real with yourself in Dynasty, Jason. You're not going to win with this roster because of your next two positions that we're going to go over. Okay, your team is not going to win, and the reason is, listen, you have no receivers. You're not strong at tight end or at receiver. You have no depth. If you suffer one injury, I don't even think you can get through your bye weeks because you have no depth at all. If you suffer one injury, you're finished. immediately. You're going to have to trade all your future picks just to compete, just to make the playoffs. It's the decision you cannot make with this roster. Okay, the decision with this roster is to rebuild now. If you were to wait another year, it's going to prolong your rebuild probably by 3 years. Okay, if you start the rebuild now, it might be a 2-year rebuild, and you might have a very strong team in 2 years. If you wait a year, it might be a 5-year rebuild, a 6-year rebuild, and you might never have a strong team. You might just be in a perpetual rebuild. So I would, as a friend of yours, Jason, beg you to rebuild this now.
Okay,
And I want to at the end of the episode, I want to make an offer to you.
Okay. Let me list off the wide receivers because I agree this is probably the weakest part of my team. It would have been okay like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Evans would be my top wide receiver, and who knows when the wheels are gonna fall off on him. Tyler Lockett, this might be the year that he's done. It could be next year, but it might be this year, very much so. Adam Thielen, this might be the year.
Yeah.
Probably is
Yeah.
the year. And then I've got a bunch of guys after that, like Michael Thomas. Is he even going to play again? Honestly, after that, Tutu
Yeah.
Atwell, maybe there's probably not really anyone else even worth mentioning.
Yeah,
Um, eh,
nobody you want in your lineup.
yeah,
Maybe you could
exactly.
throw somebody there in a bye week and just pray that they give you a couple points. But yeah,
Get a touchdown.
yeah,
That and then my tight ends, my lead tight end would be Dalton Schultz.
yeah.
Uh, I
You're
don't
not
think it's
thrilled about, but
yeah, I'm not
yeah,
it's not horrible, but certainly not something that I'm excited about. And
yeah,
I've got Ertz as well, but who knows how many games he'll even play. This is most likely his final season, especially with them drafting Sanat. Yeah, clearly I'm struggling to get pieces together for my lineup.
yeah.
My starting lineup, if at wide receiver would be, let's say, Evans, Lockett, and Thielen, and Schultz would be my starting tight end. And because we only have one flex, James Conner could be my flex. So
Okay,
in terms of my starting lineup, like you mentioned, without bye weeks, I think I can win some games, right? Like I think I
yeah,
could go like 500 as an example with a roster like that. But it's the bye weeks that would kill me.
yeah,
Because I really don't have anything that I can throw in there when it comes to bye weeks. And if I
yeah,
suffer any injury of any sort, then my team's
yeah,
absolutely screwed. But I do have my first round picks for the next 2 years,
yeah. It's very
and
key.
all my picks. So if I wanted, I could be stubborn one more time and use those picks to trade to get some receivers or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you mentioned, if it fails, then I'm screwed for the next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I can see that you want to go for one more year. That's the mentality you have, but it's just you have to just face the facts that this is the time you have to hit rebuild. Uh, like we've said in the past, better a year too early than a year too late. Listen, I already think you're a year too late. Okay, you have to go now. Don't try to don't you. I remember you saying before you want to wait till like weeks 4 or week 5 and see how it goes. Don't even do that. You need to start thinking now about selling some pieces. And I would start with this roster. Okay, let me make you an offer. Here's the offer I wanted to make you. Okay.
Okay.
Let's try to rebuild this team. And I would even mind, I would love to help you if you're willing to let me help you. Let's try to rebuild this team and make this an ongoing series for the channel. Maybe revisit this in midway through the season, see how your rebuild's going. Revisit it at this time next season, see how it's going at that point, and let's see, a couple years from now if you've been able to rebuild it. I would suggest, like, what, let's see if we can rebuild this and let's make this an episode. This is episode 1. Let's see when episode 2 will come later, and let's see if we can rebuild this team into something a little bit more competitive and a little bit more sustainable. That's my challenge for you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like the idea. Let me say so. When I was saying with this team, I'm thinking sort of like week 4, week 5, because yeah, I guess my question to you would have been this because I don't think it's worth doing right now anyways, only because I think I need to wait like a few weeks to have some of these players gain a little bit more value, right? Like I think Derrick Henry is I expect him to
Yeah,
get off to a good start and therefore raise his value, and then
yeah,
I can trade him for more. I think the same for Connor. I think he's going to start despite them picking up Was it Corman? No, not
Yeah, it should have been
Benson.
Ben, yeah.
Yeah, Benson in the draft. So despite them picking up Benson in the draft, I think he's going to start, and I think he'll raise his value. CMC obviously, as well as Aaron Rodgers. So all these guys, I think their values go up
Yeah.
as the season goes on, at least in the early stages. So
Yeah.
I want to wait anyways. But then my question becomes this: before we get to the bye weeks, let's say I start off 4-0. Do I still rebuild?
Yes, no, no, no. You have to rebuild. Don't even get this in your mind. You have to rebuild this team.
All
Don't
right, all
don't
right,
do
all
it,
right.
Jason. Listen, okay. It's good that you have the mindset to wait a little bit
Yeah,
because listen, like the biggest mistake that dynasty owners make is they don't understand the schedule, the value schedule in dynasty and when to sell players and when to hit the rebuild button because the biggest mistake I see people make is trying to rebuild before the draft and then grabbing draft picks in the current draft because that's when they're the most expensive. Right now, the value of the 2025 draft picks is at its lowest.
yeah,
This is actually a decent time to go out and try to grab those picks because people are starting to look at their starting roster for this next season now, and they will not value those picks as highly as they would have 2 months ago. So we're getting to the point now where it's time to start selling these players, and it's the right time to do so because yeah, it's at this time that people do not value the 2025 and 2026 draft picks as highly. So I think it's okay to start looking to sell now, even Jason. But as you said, like players like Derrick Henry, I expect will increase in value. But I was going to say to you, with your roster, I wouldn't start by selling Derrick Henry. I would start by selling the guys that are going to be a little bit harder to sell. You know, take a look around your league and see if you could sell Tyler Lockett, see if you could sell Dalton Schultz, see if you could sell, I don't know, Adam Thielen, maybe get a third, you know, just see if you can sell these guys that are maybe a little bit more difficult to sell. And then if you can sell one or two of them, it'll tell your league mates, you know, that you're hitting rebuild and people will start coming to you for the bigger guys. That's what you want. You don't want to be going to guys for, do you want CMC? Do you want Derrick Henry? You want guys coming to you, right? So I would start by selling those other guys. And I would attempt to sell everybody, including Patrick Mahomes, because listen, you just need as much value as you can. So no, everybody should be on the market for you. I think you don't have to sell Patrick Mahomes, but if you can get a deal you like, that's like, you know, 3 first-round picks plus, something like that, maybe a couple firsts and a really good prospect, maybe like a tier down at quarterback and to grab some draft capital as well. This is something I'm looking to do in your situation because you need a lot of draft capital to rebuild this. So I'm looking to sell everybody. You know, everybody, including Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, as I said, I would start with, you know, some of the guys that are the back end guys in my roster that are maybe getting me a third or a second. Start with them, and then hopefully your league mates will come to you.
yeah, fair enough. I was already offered a third for Aaron Rodgers, and I was like, no, 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 no,
Oh
no, no, no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no, no.
So
That's gross.
yeah, but let's say it was a second. Would you
Yeah,
take a
yeah.
second?
Yeah. If I think it's a high second, I'm taking that.
Yeah, probably be like a mid to late.
I think I have something to work with there. Okay, I think I have something to work with there. I think I could make a counter offer to get something I like. I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm not taking that straight up. Uh, he's going to be productive. I think there'll probably be a better time to sell. If that guy's coming to you for Aaron Rodgers, you know you want him. So I would start thinking about a counter. I wouldn't just hit reject on that. I would counter it, let him know where you're at. Yeah, like that's the kind of guy you could look to sell now. But
Okay.
I definitely not taking a third. No, no, no. Third misses way too frequently. You need a minimum a second.
Okay. We want to talk a little bit about redrafts, or sorry, rebuilds in general, as well as retools. But before we get to that, is there anything more that you want to talk about specifically with my team and my roster?
Um, I think I've covered most of it. I would just like to say that listen, at this stage, like you just need to think value, 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 value. So you know, put these guys on the block. Maybe guys will come to you. Like look at other teams and see who has a need at tight end. Maybe you could get Dalton Schultz and Zach Ertz off your roster. You know, I know of course your running backs are your prize assets, but maybe look who's weak at running back and wants to compete. And then, you know, see if you can sell Lockett to somebody who's potentially weak at receiver, maybe for who needs a wide receiver 3 or something like that. So start looking around your league, looking at their rosters and see what kind of picks you can get back. You have your first for the next 2 years, but you don't have your second next year.
Yeah.
So I'd even see if I could maybe potentially get my second back before I fully you know hit reset on this roster.
That's not a bad idea too. Yeah, definitely should consider that.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do? Like! Subscribe! Subscribe!
All right, let's talk about rebuilds in general then. And rebuilds, you would say, is different, let's say, with a retool, right? And how so?
All right. Well, I think there's a time to retool. Like, and if you can find the time, if you can find the right time, then you can retool in 1 year. Like, I think with the roster you have, you need to rebuild. But if you had done this a couple years ago, perhaps with a bit of a younger team, then you probably could have retooled for a season, like sold off a couple of the older guys like the Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett's when they were perhaps a bit more valuable, gone younger at that position, maybe retooled for like tried to tank for 1 year and then reset your team for like a 4 or 5 year run like that. So sometimes if you have an aging roster, you can retool in 1 year, grab some draft capital, sell off some older pieces, and it's like an easier. You don't need to fully rebuild. It's really tough for me to get into without knowing the specifics of your team or your league. But basically, a retool is a 1 year thing, whereas a rebuild is at least 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. And with my team, so I should be looking at, say, 26 to be competing again. 27.
Yeah,
Definitely not
20.
next year.
I would say 27. If with your roster, I'm looking to get 25 and 26 picks. Like 26 picks are just the same as 25 for me. Maybe even I'm looking to get 26 picks over 25 because I think I could probably talk the other owner into getting rid of those. And I've heard that the draft class is even perhaps a little bit stronger in 26. So I'm targeting 26 or 25, but I'm perfectly fine taking 26, 26 picks.
Okay. Let's talk about mistakes that people make in the rebuild. We already spoke a little bit about starting a rebuild too late, right? Because if you start the retool too late, then it becomes a rebuild, and then now you're going to be doing it longer than you should be. What are some other mistakes that you see people do other than starting too late in their rebuild?
Yeah, by far the biggest mistake I see is not understanding how the calendar works. Okay, by far the biggest one. So like, people decide they want to, people compete for a season, and then after that season finishes, they're like, oh, my team's not good enough. I need to reset. I need to retool. I need to rebuild. Okay, they start selling off all their assets immediately before the draft, before the upcoming rookie draft, and they grab a bunch of picks in that rookie draft because they want to have some fun. That is by far the worst way to go about it, because after the season, those picks become so expensive. You want to rebuild after the rookie draft, at the beginning of the season, at this point in, July, August, September, October, this is when you want to rebuild, because this is when you can acquire those future picks at their cheapest. Okay. That is the biggest mistake I see. People selling, rebuilding in January and February and grabbing picks for the upcoming drafts when they're the most expensive. By far, that's the biggest mistake I see.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. Like I said, and also I feel like another time to do it, maybe not to plan to do it, but like the trade deadline, right? Like when you have teams that are competing to win, and they can see that they're just one win behind the top teams, or trying to get a bye, and some teams will pay a little bit more than maybe that they should to get certain pieces, and picks to them become less valuable than maybe some of the pieces that you have that can help them win a championship.
Right. So let's use this for an example. Like, say you're selling CMC before the rookie draft, you're probably only getting like the 104, like Neighbors, because like in a startup, that's probably, he's going around the same time as Malik Neighbors, maybe. Okay. So maybe you're getting like the 104, the 105 for CMC. Okay. But if you wait till in season, you're probably getting more than 2 future first round picks. One of them could end up being the 104 or 105, and one of them could end up being like the 109, 110. Maybe you're getting a second on top. You're just getting immensely more valuable if you wait, more value if you wait on selling an asset like that. You could definitely get more than 2 first round picks for CMC in season. So yeah, that's by far the biggest mistake I see. People just, they just throw away value when they trade at that point in time.
Okay, and let's talk about when you're rebuilding, trying to acquire picks compared to trying to acquire young players. Like, let's say,
Yeah.
targeting guys like a Jordan Addison or maybe like a Rasheed Rice or,
Yeah.
probably guys like Puka Nacua probably would be too expensive
Right.
right now. But like, how do you weigh going after young players compared to going after draft picks?
Yeah, I always want to go after draft picks because they increase in value. It's gold, right? Draft picks are gold. You can acquire them when they're cheapest and they increase in value and they become much more expensive and more valuable later. So obviously you want draft picks over anything else. It's easier to get draft picks thrown into deals too. Like say you go after like say you tier down, right? From like let's say Tyreek Hill to Jordan Addison. Say you want to do that. You have Tyreek Hill, you want to get younger and you like Jordan Addison a lot. So you tier down from Tyreek Hill to Jordan Addison. You could easily get some picks thrown onto that deal. The guy wants Tyreek Hill because he wants to compete, he wants to score points. And you know that Tyreek Hill is probably going ahead of Jordan Addison in most startup drafts. So he's worth more to the community. I think you could very easily get like a second and a third thrown into that deal, and then maybe you hit with those picks. Maybe the second turns into a high second or whatever. Maybe you can get a late first thrown into that deal if you're really lucky. But even better than getting Jordan Addison and a second and a third for Tyreek Hill, it's taking Tyreek Hill and turning him into two firsts and a second. Because you never know what's going to happen with those picks. If you get a pick in 2026, maybe that guy that has Tyreek Hill's team falls off the map, and it's that first round pick becomes more valuable than Jordan Addison because picks always increase in value. So that's what you want to target. But it's okay to tier down for youth. I think just try to get some extra value added on to kind of insulate your deals. That would be my suggestion.
What do you do if you seem to have a history of sucking at drafting? Like I know some people
Yeah.
just aren't very good when it comes to drafting rookies. Like, are there other things that you can do, or would you ever just as many draft picks as you can, and then once you do gain the value of picks, use those picks to trade?
Yeah, I mean, like if you like have a history of sucking and drafting, you probably need to change your process. But don't start devaluing picks because you suck at drafting. As I said, picks always increase in value, and there's no reason you have to use them. You could just hold them to the right time and then sell them off for proven veterans if that's the route you want to go. But I would suggest more than anything, just change your process and start following the fantasy football freaks because we'll help you in your drafting process and give you some good advice.
Okay. Any final thoughts on rebuilding, retooling, um, mistakes that people make, good things, smart things to do? Like you mentioned, I think one of the smartest things you can do is keep up to date with what we're talking about, especially when it comes to draft time and rookie picks and stuff like that. But any final comments on rebuilding?
Yeah, don't be like my buddy Jason here and think you have one more season left in you. Start it 1 year, Jason should have started this rebuild last year. Okay, don't wait too long. Jason's just lucky that guys like CMC and Derrick Henry have maintained their value or even increased in value. So don't wait on it until it's too late. Get in on it as soon as possible and get that that rebuild going. And let me say to you, Jason, let's start an episode here. Like, let's start a series here. Let's rebuild this team. I'll help you out with it. Let's message your league mates. Let's rebuild this team and get an absolute juggernaut going.
All right, I can't wait. And certainly, if that's what's going to help my team, I think I can't wait for that to happen. One more thing I just wanted to remind that you did mention earlier, but if you're rebuilding, make sure you own your own picks. Like you mentioned, it was a great idea to try to go and reacquire my second round pick for 2025, which I do not have. But certainly, if you don't have your own first round picks, try to reacquire those at some point because it gives you more purpose. If your team is obviously struggling and ends up with a high pick, you want that to be yours, not somebody else's. Yeah.
If you don't have your first round pick, it changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Changes absolutely everything.
All right. Well, there you have it. Some great ideas and advice for how to retool and how to rebuild. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time for another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.
Peace.
Okay.